Hello, Gunner James 105. This video is concerning something I've been looking for quite some time, and well, 3-4 years anyways. Could not seem to find it anywhere in Canada where there were boatloads that went to the US of the M1895 Nagant revolver. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about that and then give you some close-ups and a little more information on this. So this search of mine, and this includes the biggest gun show in Canada, which again is coming up in a couple weeks. Again this year, over 1,000 tables. I could not find one of these, and looking online, looking at gun shows, just couldn't find. And so what I decided to do in the meantime was, if I ever came across one of these, was to maybe get a little jump on things. And so I picked up a holster that came with some accessories. This holster, the original 1901 leather holsters for the M1895 Nagant, they were replaced by these. I think they started making these about 1951, and for whatever number of years that they were needing these. And this one here, the 1901 pattern was made so that these straps were switched around so you could wear it on either side of your belt. So you'd have your left side or your right side mount, and but these ones were meant to go on the right side. And so decided, this is before this thing came into the collection, decided to grab one of these anyways because the price was good. And if you're familiar with these, they come with, some of them have some nice stampings. This one's pretty much void of anything. I don't know, it wasn't stamped very well, or there's something very faint there. I can't really make it out. And you've got the cleaning rod, of course, on the side, and that's pretty much the same as what came out later on the Tokarev holsters. And this nice little pouch here that holds 14 rounds. So they've got a little divider in there. I can lay this out and show you that. And then with that holster, you get, and of course the older lanyard would have been all leather, so this is a post-war type lanyard, and that piece there would be on your belt, forward of the holster, and then of course this end onto the lanyard ring on the handgun. Nice to have, because should that thing slip out of your hands, well, you've not lost it. So especially if you you're running, or in the old days they would, I mean, it's like any lanyard on horseback or whatever. So got that. And then the other thing was this little tool, and this one just happens to have a nice little, I don't know if it'll show up on there, but it's got the little star. So this would be Tula, and the revolver is a Tula, and it's got a reversible 2 sizes for the flat blade. And I've had this thing apart because when I got it, it needed to be cleaned thoroughly, and the grips are a bit loose, and so they don't have screws on the outside. You've got to take off the side plate, and you can get it to screw to tighten that, which is kind of interesting because I was kind of sitting with a tray in the living room. My wife was just to my left, and for the right grip, there's a very heavy spring that goes for the hammer. And so in trying to remove that, because the screw is right underneath that little spring, and so I'm trying to remove that, and that thing flung out of there, maybe a foot past her face, over to the arm of the couch she was sitting on. And so I carefully, once I got that tightened, I was careful to put that spring back in there with my hand over top of it. So anywho's, get that with it. You wouldn't have really well, you might have had that in your pocket or your pack or whatever. It's not something you'd be using very often. and so that came with it. But I had a chance. The same place. This was a private seller. So in my search, then finally, and it was within about 2 weeks of buying that holster, I came across this one here on a private sale. There's kind of what they call a town post, and I've found some things there before. And there's actually the Smith and Wesson 44 caliber Russian was up for grabs. And so this fella had this with a holster, and he had the handgun fully functional, and it's what they would then call a I forget the year on it, but it was old enough that it would be an antique, so it still works, and he had some ammunition to go with it, but you don't even need a license to buy it. Problem is that it was over $2,000, and so not something I could grab. And so that was what this replaced. The 1895 Nagant replaced the heavy caliber, the 44 caliber handgun. At that time it was a single action, and with militaries modernizing, and not that this is the most modern, it was probably out of date by the time it came out, but they were looking to have with the smokeless powder, they were able to get higher velocity on smaller bullets, so they were going to a smaller bullet, and they wanted to have something that was in a double, or have the ability for a double action as well, so they went with this. And Leon Nagant, who I believe was the Nagants, because of the relationship they had with the Tsar or whatever, won the contract for this handgun. And initially they were making them at Liège, Belgium. So they made them there from about 1895 to 1897. They made about 20,000 of them for Russia. Then the works were taken to, or sold to Russia, and they started making them there in 1898 and finished up making, I think the last ones were made in 1945. Remained in service till about 1953 as far as the military, and then beyond that up into the 80s they used them, would have been postal inspectors or security people, that sort of thing. And so now there is the single action, double action versions that they had. Single action apparently for the I've often heard people say the private's gun or the enlisted man's gun. I'm not sure that they really had, I think it might have been more a junior NCO as opposed to a senior NCO. So the senior NCO, I believe, would have had the single action only, and the higher ranking would have the double action, which apparently they were trusted to not use up too much ammunition. And then after the revolution, they started, I think, in about 1918 with the single action, double action builds, and then they converted a lot of the single action over to a double action. So it'd be pretty, I think it's pretty rare to find a single action, just a single action one of these. And so they, after the Second World War, along with the 9130s and the Tokarevs, and these 1895s, a lot of the firearms they had, they took them and refurbished them and repaired whatever needed repairing, put in new parts, and had these things tucked away for a possible need in the future, World War III, whatever, that if they needed to call up people, they could call them up, and these seasoned veterans of World War II would be able to just grab onto these things, and away we go. But time passed, and automatic or semi-automatic firearms came to be more accepted and in use. So then the idea became more of a money maker. So you could sell off all of this stuff that you're not going to use. You're probably never going to use it. So they had all these refurbished items. And that's why we see so many of these 9130s and the PU snipers and these handguns, Tokarevs, coming in to North America and elsewhere. The Tokarev M9130 in Canada, the Russian ones for sure, PU snipers, they're available, still available, and the price is still pretty good on those. Where this particular one, as I mentioned, the bulk of them, as far as I can tell, went straight to the US. Somehow we missed out on that. And I had actually missed out on, I have to say, I forgot to mention, the one of the places down east that sells these surplus firearms, I think got about 10 of them in. And I found out on Facebook that they're available. And they were $500 for the holster, and it was a refurbished item for sale, but those were gone real quick. So missed out on that. And I had even called them, and they said that they weren't likely to get any more in. It was getting pretty hard to get this anymore. So this one here is a 1937, and I checked on the numbers for that year that were produced, and it's just over 72,000. So I'm gonna stop this here and then get this camera positioned for a closer look on the table here, so hang tight. So just for comparison, this being the replacement, they had this being produced as long as they did. You know, even though they were building these, they couldn't build these fast enough to replace these, so they still had things working to build these. This particular one I featured in another video. I might give some close-ups and do one on this particular one because the other ones were sold off. But this one here is all matching and 1945, so all in original condition pretty much. Very nice condition, so I'll set that aside. And we'll talk about this one here. So you can see the Tula marking on there. And I had forgotten to, I think it was 19, I'm not sure, I haven't got the date now, darn it. The symbols changed. They had different symbols on here, and they did make some of these at the Ijevsk factory. And so this is a Tula made with the star with an arrow in 1937. And the serial numbers on this all match, and so there's a serial number, actually I believe it's on this side, on the inside of the plate, and then they've got it right here, and then the only other place they have it is actually marked on the cylinder. So those numbers all match. So this one, as you can see, has not been refurbished. So it's got a lot of holster wear on it, but that's okay. I think I prefer it in this condition. I mean, not that I'm knocking any of the people or any of the guns that are out there that are refurbished. I would have grabbed those ones if I could have, but this is the one that came up for sale, and so it's got all its parts. So the big difference too on the refurbished, you'll usually see a little square with a line through it. That tells you it's been refurbished, and this doesn't have that on it. But the grips are one of the things that you'll notice is different. This is the original design. It's a walnut and a fine checkering. That's all hand checkered, but it was a fine checker pattern compared to later when they were replaced with an Arctic birch. So you would get a wooden grip, Arctic birch, or you would get a plastic or Bakelite, brown Bakelite grips as well. That was another thing they kind of updated on it. And so when it comes to these, the thing I hear all the time is trigger pull and how difficult that trigger pull is. And so if you're going for accuracy, I think just about any handgun I have, single, double action, whatever, I'm gonna cock it. And the trigger on that trigger pull is not bad at all. It's fairly light. Now, if I had to grab this thing in a hurry because I needed to defend myself, you know, and it's not. That's more of its intention, you know. So as far as trying to be accurate on a far distant target, doing the double action, you're going to have a bit of a pull, but still, you know, I mean, it's not as bad as I thought it would be. So yes, the gas seal on this. Now, I don't have any original type ammunition for it. I'll be looking for some of that at the gun show coming up. So what I did get was a couple boxes of these here, that PPU, which is not loaded the same as the original. It's more of a target load, if that, so it doesn't pack as much punch. And it's designed a little differently with the end of the cartridge having that real definite slope down, whereas the others were more of a gentler taper through there on the original. But yeah, certainly you're going to I'm not going to load this because that wouldn't be proper, but you take that, throw it on the floor, grab another one. You take that and slide that into there and rotate and load each one into the cylinders. And there are 7 as opposed to your more common 6. And this can be rotated whether the hammer is down or not. That's another thing that's quite different about this gun. And you notice that I pulled this loading gate down to gain access to load it. And so with this type of cartridge, the 7.62 by 38R, the cylinder then moves forward and it pushes the end of that cartridge, cartridge into the forcing cone here. And so now we've got a seal. And as far as I know, this would be very few in the world designs that would have that type of seal, gas seal. So they then had, with this moved forward, you didn't want to have your cartridge falling back out of there. So there's another piece up in there that also comes up. I don't know if I can show that, but if you you can see that come up there. And so that comes against the back of the cartridge, against that rim. So the rim would be sitting right in there, so it's not going anywhere. And that's now up into the forcing cone and ready to fire. And to unload, of course, we'll open that. Then you're going to have to give this a little bit of a, sorry about that, have to give this just a half a turn, and it comes out. And it's nice in that it's not threaded into here that you end up cross-threading or anything. It's got a little notch. I can show that notch. But there's, yeah, there it is. Yeah, so that little notch there just fits into a piece inside. So once you've done that, you'll swing that over, and you'll force the cartridge empty casing out. Give it another turn for each one, and you give it a bit of force. It should knock it right out of there. And they're pretty simple to take apart. As I say, these there's a screw here, which this is a little spring that puts tension on this loading gate. And so you remove that and remove that, and just give it a little tap before that screws right out. So you just loosen it off, give it a little tap there, and then this whole side plate comes apart. And you can see here too, this is all one piece of wood, or sorry, not one piece of wood, but all part of that side plate. So that is the way that's put together. And if you're wanting to remove that cylinder, it's fairly easily done as well. So you're gonna look at the two little notches here, line those up so that they're straight across from each other. And now you can take the cylinder pin out. Oop. And your loading gate open, and out comes the cylinder. And this here will come apart. It's spring loaded, and you're gonna, if you wanted to take it apart, you can see there's a little notch here and a mark here. So you just turn that till it lines up, and out it comes, little spring. So back down in there, give it a turn. Now you'll just give that a little push, get that in there. Click. Rotate this back, and done. So it's got an adjustable front sight there for windage. You can just drift that side to side, or whatever's necessary. Just kind of a closer look then on that. And you can see the sight, whether the hammer is up or down. It's not the best, but it works. And so I think that pretty much covers it. The M1895 Nagant that I've been looking for a long time has finally arrived. Looking forward to trying it out at the range. It's still winter here, and that is something I will get to, and then maybe I'll do a video on that. So, thanks for watching.